Hey everyone, can everybody hear me? Alrighty, my name's John. I'm gonna be your teacher for this. So just real quick, uh, is everybody mute? Yeah, okay, can everybody in the chat just give your name and something interesting about you, just so I can have like some association, or if you want to talk, which is a bit preferable actually, but I mean, you don't have to. Okay. Yeah, and if you want, you can unmute yourself, by the way, which actually is a bit easier for me because, like, when I'm presenting, I don't like see all of your comments. So if you have a question, uh, yeah, and it would be a bit easier. But you can do the raise hand thing, right? I'm not sure. Okay. Okay. Yeah. All right. Cool. So the question, there was no question. Just give your name and a quick introduction. Yeah. Yeah, just your name and yeah. So not letting you unmute, give me a second. Oh, yeah. Okay, now try unmuting.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, that works. There we are. Okay, so if everybody wants to unmute, makes my life a lot easier. Again, you don't have to, but
Probably won't unmute since my background's noisy.
I mean, it's fine. I don't really care.
Hey, hello.
Great, art isn't this?
There you are. Yeah, so if you ever have a question, just unmute, say, hey, I have a question, and then, say your question. Yeah, okay.
Thanks.
So I get, is everybody done introducing themselves? I Okay, so
Hello?
yeah, whoever just
Um,
said hello, yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
okay. So, me and my brother signed on, and for some reason, I put in my email and my password, but I can't join. Is it okay that for today, I could be beside my brother for this meeting?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
As long as, I mean, if you, I don't even, as long as you're present, it's fine. Yeah. if you can hear what I'm saying and you can, ask questions and do everything you need to, in the end, it doesn't really matter to me as long as you're getting everything you need. Okay, so I think if most people are here at the very least, I think I'll start. So give me a second. Can everyone see my screen at the moment?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So welcome to Game Theory, everybody. Who's excited?
Me, I guess.
Yeah, I'm excited.
I would hope everyone's excited. Okay. So, basic important information. If you can find our syllabus at the actual ed page if you want to know what each day is going to be about. If you need to email me, just gametheoryjohn@gmail.com. It almost rhymes, but not quite. We meet every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday from 2 to 3 p.m. So our first class is now, and our last class will be on the 8th of August. So again, if you have any questions, don't be afraid to ask. And this is just going to go on for 2 weeks. So that'll be fun. I'm just checking through the chat to see if it's anything important. All right. So I guess now that we're starting the class, let's kind of keep the chat away from Valorant and more onto questions, just so that I don't have to like sort through that. Go ahead at the beginning of class when we're not doing anything, but just so I can know if somebody has a question or not. Yeah. Okay. So let's start. So our day one. That's just the basics, So what even is game theory? A game involves two or more people adopting strategies in order to maximize payoffs. A payoff is just the numerical value assigned to how much players want a specific scenario. Game theory studies these interactions, assuming all players are rational. An example is rock, paper, scissors. Both players can either choose rock, paper, or scissors. And in the end, you can just choose rock, paper, or scissors, and you hope to win and get that 1 point. So a payoff can be anything from like time saved to monetary value to implied value. That's just set by players. And it's always one number, but it's always defined. So yeah, anything about that? Any questions about these basic definitions? Is that
No.
okay? Why to Marcus and Ernesto? Is that a question or is that just maybe and then question mark? I don't know. Oh, is that about the money is time saying? I don't even know. I don't care if your video is turned on or not. It doesn't really matter, but yeah. Again, let's keep the chat on topic a bit. Just so I can read questions and act accordingly. And again, I don't really care about the video. So games versus decisions. So a game involves players gauging what other players will do and, maximizing payoffs. That's a previous definition. Decisions don't involve other players' choices. It's just you making a decision. So a game, rock, paper, scissors again, but a decision is what shirt I should wear. Nobody else. I'm getting some questions. So if I don't. I'm not a fan. I don't know what that. I don't know what that means. Okay. I don't even. This is gonna sound. I sound like I'm. Whatever. There we are. Okay. So remember a game, and so let's go back to our previous slide. A game involves two people, right? So in the example of rock, paper, scissors, there's, yeah, two or more people. Two or more people have to be doing in the game. If there's only one person, then they're just, as we say in this slide, that's just a decision. Three-person game is possible. It has to be two or more players. So we're not going to be really talking about three or more players. That's a bit more difficult, but you really treat it like a two-player game just with some extra steps. Yeah. So rationality. So, the nice definition from dictionary.com or whatever is based on or accordance with reason or logic. Players always want the best payoffs no matter what, right? They're always going to act in their own best interests, and they don't really care about what other people are doing. Yeah, exactly. It's how smart someone is. And we assume in game theory, you have to assume, yeah, what if the player is dumb? That's the thing. In game theory, we assume that they're all incredibly smart. We act as if they're all Spock from Star Trek. They all act in their best interests, and we assume that they're going to do what's best for themselves. In real life, people act irrationally, but we assume that this isn't really real life, so we all act in our best interests. So these are a handful of, any questions about that, actually? Let's go back. At all? Is that a question or just accidentally turning off the mic? I don't know.
Oh, no, I was just trying to say I have no question.
So the thing about regularly, do we have to assume they know game theory too? Yeah. So why do people want the best payoff? Why does it say from blank to everybody? Well, because that's what we defined it as. And I probably should use the pointer. Yeah, that's a good point. Like, move some stuff around my screen. Can you see the pointer thing? Yeah. So basically, when in game theory, we have to assume that everybody is choosing their best options. Remember, the thing with the highest payoff is the one that the player wants the most. Payoffs is how much they want a scenario, right? So the higher the payoff, the higher the wants for that thing. The player wants for that given scenario. So they're going to try to go for that. Is it a probability? It depends. Usually, we're going to get into that. That's a very good question, and it really depends on the kind of game. Sometimes it's only one option. Like if you have several options in rock, paper, scissors, it's a probability. But in some other games, you should always choose one option no matter what. And we're going to talk about that in day 3 and day 2. And it really, when it starts becoming a probability, is going to be day 4 eventually. So we're actually going to talk about Monopoly in a little bit, so give that a second. Anyway, so these are some very basic features of a game. Chess is a very good example of a game, and we're actually going to get into that in a bit. So yeah. So there's a handful of features of a game that every game that we're going to talk about has, although some of these features aren't going to be as relevant to the class. So a game can either be simultaneous or sequential, and that's just when do players make their choices? Do players make choices at the same time, or do players make choices one after another? So constant sum or not. Everybody remember what a payoff is?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so constant sum refers to, so every player has their own payoff, and it's constant sum for if every given scenario, the total sum of each player's payoffs is the same. And that we'll get more into that. repeated or not. So this just depends if the game is repeated or if it only occurs once. So like, if do you play rock, paper, scissors only once or multiple times? So imperfect information or perfect information. So do some players know more than other players, right? Does somebody know more than somebody else, and is lying possible? Fixed rules or not? Can the rules change partway through? Can somebody change their payoffs? And are cooperative agreements possible? So, in some examples, what are your chances of knowing chess when knowing game theory? For you, probably not that much, but that really applies to robots, I guess, and we'll get into that. So a cooperative agreement is just, can players choose to make an agreement that benefits both of them? So simultaneous versus sequential. So do players make actions at the same time or one after the other? So in a simultaneous game, players don't know what the other players are going to choose. They're choosing their options at the same time. So in rock, paper, scissors, I don't know if you're going to choose rock, paper, scissors because we both do our final action at the exact same time. And sequential game is a game in which players pick options after each player's decision. So in chess, you make moves at one after the other, but if you put in check, you have to respond by getting out of check. You can't move a piece such that you're still in check. So does anybody else have some examples of sequential or simultaneous games? Simultaneous is not quite as luck because, as we'll discover in day 3, we're going to talk about it. So okay, Uno is sequential. Yes, exactly. Players play cards one after the other, and they have to, we're actually going to talk about Uno eventually because, Uno is a good example of a sequential game. Simultaneous is that basically becomes, they're all probability, but simultaneous game, you might think it's pretty probability, but when you look at it through game theory lens, it actually becomes pretty straightforward, and probability only comes in specific scenarios. Did I spell nutshell wrong? Or who spelled nutshell? Oh, whatever. Okay. Poker, yeah. Poker is a good example. Actually, poker is more of a simultaneous game because everybody makes moves one after the other, right? No, sequential game. Poker is a very good sequential game because players make moves one after the other. You're correct, yeah. Monopoly is sequential, exactly, yeah. But does anybody have any, can't comment on that. Does anybody have any examples of simultaneous? Rock, paper, scissors, exactly, yeah. I don't know. I don't know how to, war is simultaneous, yeah. Although that's not very skill-based because in the end you're just drawing cards and playing them down at the same time. But if you could arrange the deck. Man, you're
What
all,
about video games? Are some video game like shooters simultaneous?
it's kind of hard to describe games, like video games in game theory, simply because there's so many possible options. In game theory, remember, in game theory, you are choosing a specific option for a specific payoff. And because video games, you're going on for so many, there's so many possible things you can do. Like, do you move left at this specific instance? Do you move left at the next specific instance? You can't really do video games in terms of game theory. The reason you can do it with chess, you might think chess is very similar. It can go on for so long. But chess, remember, there's a specific grid. And with chess, pieces can only move in a specific way.
Can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, about the video games thing, about simultaneous and sequential, and, and sometimes simultaneous because, if you're trying to capture a point and then, there's 3 points, you try to capture a point, try to capture all and get points. So, you can capture a point and then, go off to capture another, and that point can be captured at the same time.
Okay, so that's an interesting example. So I'm going to slightly change it to make it a different simultaneous game. So suppose there are 3 total points, right? And you can either capture point 1, 2, or 3. and the opposing team can either defend point 1, 2, or 3. And if you go to some points and they defend the same point, then something will happen. If you go to a different point and they don't save that point, maybe you capture that point, but that point stays defended, et cetera, et cetera. So then at that point, it's a simultaneous game because you don't know where the other team's going to defend, and the other team doesn't know where you're going to go against.
Actually, you don't defend points. It's just out there for you to capture.
Uh,
Like both teams can capture points.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know what game I was specifically thinking of.
It's flare domination on
I
Family
don't-
Forces.
I don't know. Okay, man. Okay, so I'm just going to institute a rule. The thing about video games is simply you can't really do video games super well again unless you really simplify them. Because, there's technically infinite moves you can do, even given a time limits, because there's so, many options you can do that there's no real way. Yeah. Oh, I thought you were raising your hand.
Oh, oops, wait. Oh, I have a question. Wait, so for Blackjack, like how does that wait, can you hear me?
Yeah,
don't
I
know
can
if
hear
my
you.
audio is
Your
Okay.
audio's working.
bad. So like for Blackjack, how does that work? Because like you don't know like what their cards are, but you can like still base your moves off of like what they do.
So
Even
the
if you
thing,
don't
yeah.
know like why they're doing it.
Blackjack, yeah. Blackjack isn't actually a game if you think about it, right? Because it's just you. You are making a decision. Other people's choices don't really have an impact on your choice, right?
I mean,
So-
well, if they like, do something, you might think that they're like, I mean, it's sort of, I guess. Yeah, okay.
So remember, the dealer isn't really playing. The dealer is more just manifesting the will of the cards, so to speak. So you can either choose to hit or pass or double down, and that's your choice. Nothing else really matters, and in the end, that's more of a decision than a game. Yeah, but
Well, it's more than doing it yourself and then comparing the results to the other person, and whoever like has a better result wins.
that's, I guess, more advanced war, and I guess at that point it would be. So it depends how you're playing that, right? If you are doing it at the same time and you don't really see the other person, then you kind of have two simultaneous games, sequential games, running beside each other, and then a simultaneous game at the very end, I guess. And but maybe if you're doing it one after the other and you can see what the other person's doing, at that point that's more of a sequential game. So yeah. Let's move on. So a simultaneous game, a soccer penalty kick, right? So assuming the goalie can't like really react, so the kicker can choose one. Which suppose there's like 4 quadrants of a goal, right? Top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right, and the goalie can either choose to block one of these 4 places, and the kicker can choose to block one of these 4 places, shoots to one of these 4 places. And suppose that the goalie can't really react to what the kicker's doing, and the kicker can't really react to what the goalie's doing. Suddenly, it's a simultaneous game. They can't react to each other. They just do their things at the exact same time, and you see the outcome. So some sequential games. Would it be simultaneous if someone plays a card and another plays encounters at the same time? Okay, I don't. So yeah, that I guess that's simultaneous. I mean sequential. So Ernesto, I don't know what card game that's specifically about. But if somebody plays a card and then you play a card in response to that, then that's actually sequential because they have to make their choice first, and based on that choice, then you choose your card. Yeah, I thought it would be Magic, to which I'd say, yeah, it's sequential. If somebody plays, I was going to do a funny joke about Magic the Gathering, but nobody would get it anyway. But it's not really, yeah. Is any team sport is simultaneous. So let's consider tennis, right? So I'm just going to talk about various sports. And so if during tennis, the serve is almost sequential. The serve is actually pretty simultaneous, right? because the server can either choose like which area in the box to go for. Like they can either serve down the line, down the middle, and they can either serve, off to the side. And the returner either has to predict what side the server is going to go to. I actually wrote a short paper about this. It was fun. But at that point, you have to kind of predict what you think the other person's going to go for, and you have to go accordingly. Yeah. Basketball simultaneous. So the thing about basketball is that, again, you have to define it in a very specific scenario. Like in tennis, again, there's a bunch of different options, but the way you, in tennis, let's say we're only talking about the serve. That's pretty easy to define, and even then we have to narrow it down to, suppose the serve, you can only do left or right. So, you have to really make it a small game. One of the hard things about game theory in real life is, how do I make this possible to be represented in the form of something I can easily, not only add payoffs to, but just make it easy. So again, and any questions that I missed? I'm assuming those question marks are referring to what I just said. Or is it? I don't know. Okay, are we all good on this, or does somebody actually have a question? Okay, I'm going to assume everyone's fine. Yeah, okay. Constant sum games. This is a bit, so do all players' payoffs add up to the same total for a scenario? So a constant sum game is like gambling. Specifically, let's just quickly talk about flipping a coin, right? Suppose there's two players, and they're flipping a coin. If it's heads, one guy loses $1 and he gives it to the other guy, so one guy gains $1. But if it's tails, the other person gains, who would have previously lost $1 would have now gain $1, and the other person loses $1. So in either scenario, one person is losing $1, so their payoff is -1, and the other person is gaining $1, so their payoff is +1. So the sum in that case is 0, right? Does everybody get that? That's okay. So now a non-constant sum game is rock, paper, scissors, right? Because in rock, paper, scissors, if somebody wins, they get 1 point, but if somebody loses, they aren't really losing a point per se. And if it's a tie, then nobody's winning any points. So if somebody wins, the total sum of the payoffs is 1. And if they tie, then the total sum of the payoffs is 0. So non-constant, if one person wins, then they win more than if they lost. That's one example, but that's more, if you can create some like weird game with absolutely random payoffs, and at that point it's not constant sum, right? It just depends about.
Oh wait, you're a little zoomed in on the slide, so I can't see all the writing. Is it possible to zoom out?
That's weird.
Oh wait, no, I think that was me. Never mind.
Okay, good. So what are some, this one might be a bit difficult. What are some examples of not sequential, we just did that. What are some examples of constant sum games and non-constant sum games? I don't know why people, poker. So what do you think poker is? Do you think it's a constant sum or not constant sum? Poker, Monopoly. In Monopoly, so assuming that Monopoly is just one long game, and Uno is one long game, most card games, people can't tie, right? You can't tie in a card game. Usually somebody wins. So yeah, card games, as long as somebody has to win, then it's a constant sum game, right? Because everybody else gets 0, while one person gets 1 point for winning the game. War, right? So in war, somebody gets a card, but somebody I guess remember, you have to define how does payoffs work. So does betting count as a game? It kind of depends, but if you're just betting on something that you don't really have access to, it more depends. It's more of a decision because you're betting on what thing to put on. Yeah, so any other examples? Yeah, it depends what you're betting on, right? And it depends if there's that's every game is betting on an outcome. That's not exactly correct, as you'll see, because like, you know, in chess, you're not really betting on anything. Not okay. So let me repeat that. Constant sum games are like carnival arcade games that have heavily stacked probability. Not really, because it depends what kind of carnival game. Like, just a probability doesn't make a game. Remember, two people have to be making decisions, and in just a probability, that's not even one person making a decision, right? Like, maybe if something has if, for example, one person is if there's two people and they're betting on a coin, right? Well, that betting on a coin in itself could not be a game, but if you're betting on something, if two people are betting on something and given some specific scenarios, maybe one person is choosing much more likely scenarios than the other person, then in that way, yeah, it could be rigged. Yeah, so I keep on seeing people mention chess for various reasons, but chess is actually an example of a non-constant sum game, right? Because so in chess, there's either somebody wins and somebody loses. So somebody gets 1 point for winning, but then somebody doesn't get anything because you don't really lose anything via losing chess. But if you get into a fork and you tie, then neither person gets any points. So that would be a non-constant sum game. And yeah, that's just a probability. Yeah. So let's remember what a payoff is. The sum refers to the payoffs, right? So given us every single possible scenario in a game of two people making choices, it's constant sum if the sum of the payoffs always adds up, and it's not constant, like to the same number, and it's not constant sum if all the points, all of the payoffs don't add up to the same number. So any more examples or any more questions? What do you mean? Is that for me? Okay. So any more examples at all? Okay. So some constant sum games are backgammon, a hand of poker, and bridge. Remember, somebody always wins in all of these, right? Somebody's always going to win a backgammon, someone's always going to win a hand of poker, and someone's always going to win a game of bridge, right? So in backgammon, like all these, somebody wins and then they get 1 point and somebody loses, they don't get anything. So the sum is always 1, right? But a non-constant sum game is like chess or checkers because you can tie in that, right? Tying is possible in all of these games. So that's why these are not constant sum. So repeated games. Does the same game happen multiple times? So this one's pretty standard, do you play rock, paper, scissors just once? In that case, it's not a repeated game. And do you play rock, paper, scissors more than once? At that point, then it is a repeated game. But so this one might kind of be hard to come up with examples for. But so if you repeat the game, because you're doing it more, you're interacting with the other player a bunch of times. Yeah, any game can be repeated. And if you're repeating the game, then you have to kind of develop a much more intricate plan, right? Because you are suddenly dealing with the same person more and more and more. and suddenly you have to find a way to interact with them because, yeah. Chess, yeah, like chess with 99 rounds, exactly, yeah. Monopoly is a repeated game because just roll the dice. I'm not sure. Is war simultaneous? War is simultaneous, yeah, because you know both. If you're talking about the card game, you know you're both drawing the card at the same time. Oh, risk. Yeah, risk is sequential, right? Because you know you're just you're choosing where you're going to invade one after the other, so that's sequential. I guess I'm not going to really. I've at a real battle, I guess, in real life, I guess it really depends on how you frame it. So, you know, if, you have to just, choose your strategy and you can't really change it, then can risk be a repeated game until someone's army dies out? Risk, if you play it multiple times, then it becomes repeated. But risk, just playing one game of risk is just one game, right? That's just a very long game. It's like how chess is one game. It's not like a bunch of repeated games. Anything else? Is war a repeated game with battles? I mean, it depends. Again, a lot of these depend on how you look at it. But for with battles, I guess it wouldn't be because in each battle, you have a different set of people, you have a different set of everybody else, so it's very different. Okay, Texas Hold'em. That might. I'm trying to think about that. I guess you could say that's a repeated game because in the end you're doing the same thing a bunch of times. So maybe Texas Hold'em is not. Yeah, repeated is not referring to terms. It's repeating to entire games. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, Texas Hold'em. That's a very good question. The poker in itself might be described as repeated because in the end you have the same pile of cards. Everybody had but you're not reshuffling the deck, so I guess not. Maybe if you play poker, but that's an interesting one. I have to think about that a bit. Pokemon probably isn't a very good example of a repeated game because, I mean, if you're in a tournament, in which case it's best of 5, then yeah. But I mean, if you're just playing the main game, then you can't re-encounter trainer battles. So I guess not. So any other questions? Wild battles. No, because each Pokemon you encounter will have different stats, I guess. Anything else? Anything at all?
Nope.
Okay, cool. Somebody said no, so I'm just going to move on. Information imbalance. Do both players have the same amount of information? So, can players lie to each other, right? Do some people have some information that other people don't? And can people use that information to manipulate others? So it's perfect information and imperfect information. An example of perfect information is rock, paper, scissors, right? Because I know you can only choose rock, paper, scissors, and you know that I can only choose rock, paper, scissors. And an example of imperfect information is when you're buying a used car, right? The Cold War, that is a very good example. Basically, every single textbook uses it. Yeah, and imperfect is clue. That's a good example because you know some things other players don't, and you can like hide it and lie about it in order to gain advantages over other players. That's a good example. Yeah. So, but yeah, when you're bluffing, exactly. Basically, every game when you can hold Mafia, that's another good example because only you know who you are. You might say, "Oh, I'm going to use werewolf instead of Mafia because I know that better." You could say, "Oh, I'm not the werewolf. I'm the seer. I'm just a normal villager or whatever." Yeah, one night werewolf, right? You're hiding it. You say, "Oh, I'm totally not the werewolf." Or maybe, yeah, perfect as chess. Another good example. You know exactly what you can do in chess. Everybody knows everybody's move in chess. You can't hide anything in chess. Murder mystery, I don't know if that's a specific thing, but probably, yeah, because you probably know some things other people don't. Most board games are perfect, yeah. Monopoly, you know what everybody else is on the field. And most, yeah. Because, in some board games, you have a hidden hand. Any game with a concealed hand is, in fact, imperfect information, right? Because I have my hand, you can't see it. Battleship, that's a very good example of imperfect because, you have the entire giant thing up. Scrabble, that's MTG is not perfect unless you're playing Phyrexian Probe. That was a funny joke. Scrabble, well, Scrabble, you do have a concealed thing, right? Yeah. Scrabble is imperfect because, you have do you conceal your letters in Scrabble?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, yeah, then it's imperfect. Yeah. Poker is imperfect. Yep. And yeah, these are all great examples. Exploding Kittens, you hide your cards, right? Most card games, yeah. I don't know what Rummikub is. Unfortunately, I'm not familiar with that. But yeah, most card games are imperfect. Uno imperfect, yeah. Except for, is there an except for? I'm intrigued. But yeah, so basically every board game in which, everything is open is an example of a perfect game, but games in which you conceal something is an imperfect game, right? But so in a more yeah, exactly. Yeah, card games are imperfect unless you bleed your hand out. So a more real world example is when you're buying a used car. You might get some base understanding of the car. Is it completely gone? But only the car dealer knows the actual things about the car. Only the car dealer knows what the car's been through. If the car has any secret rust, right? So only the car knows that. Pokemon is the card game is imperfect, yeah, because you can steal your hand. So would Pokemon the video game be imperfect? It would start off imperfect, but as the game progresses, as you figure out what your Pokemon's opponent's Pokemon moves are, yes, and even then you won't know their stats. So yeah, that's a pretty good example of imperfect because you just don't know what they are. Yeah, you don't know what other people are going to have. You just go into the battle and you see what happens. Yeah. Okay, Prisoner's Dilemma. That's oh boy, that's an entire lesson right there. Settlers of Catan.
Are we actually going to learn about it though?
Yes, we will. Don't worry about that. We will. That's a great example, but that's very far ahead though. That's day 3.
Cool.
Okay, with Settlers of Catan, I am not entirely sure about Settlers of Catan. Do you conceal your? You don't have anything, right? No. Let's just ignore Prisoner's Dilemma for now. Spoiler alert: it's perfect, but let's just not talk about that for now. Okay. Guess who? I mean, yeah. Guess who is? Yeah, you conceal your resources in Catan. Then yes. Guess who? Yes. I mean, storyline video games are imperfect and perfect at the same time. You can't really do that per se. I guess in a story, in a game, in a book, right? You still don't know exactly what's going to happen. So I guess it's imperfect unless you got the entire thing spoiled, in which case it's perfect. Yeah, if you just go watch a walkthrough, then yeah. Dominoes. You conceal what dominoes you have, so yeah. So anything else? Any other possible example? Okay, so some more examples. Perfect information, chess and checkers. I can choose. I know exactly what you can do. You know exactly what I can do. And imperfect information is poker, right? I know exactly I don't know what's in your hand, and I can hide my hand and bluff, and I can make lies, and so can you. So in that case, it's actually imperfect information. So this one is probably the weirdest and the one we're gonna not talk about at any capacity, just because this one is pretty complex and it's just not exactly fun either. So fixed rules. Do the rules of the game change partway through? Can a player just magically change their payoffs? And can players just change the rules? So an example of fixed rules is rock, paper, scissors. That's gonna stay rock, paper, scissors. And flexible rules. So suppose you're holding a rock, paper, scissors tournament, right? And suppose rock, paper, scissors is actually based on skill, even though it's clearly not. And you want a very specific player to win, right? So you can set the bracket so that your favorite player, who you know can beat certain players, will go to the top and win. And that's called setting the agenda. That's very weird, and it's not going to be fun to talk about. Okay, so does anybody have any? Does anybody have any possible examples?
Well, this game isn't really well known, but throughout the game, you can draw and add more rules cards. So there are different things that you'll have to do, and it changes throughout the game. That's flexible?
So I guess it kind of depends on how you frame the game, right? If you frame those cards in some, if you put those cards if you include those cards within the game, then no, in the end, you're just playing cards and you go on. But if you can add stuff, if you treat those cards kind of semi-separately, then yes. Couldn't you manipulate people in rock, paper, scissors? No. I guess you could threaten them with if you don't lose, I'm going to punch you, but I guess. Calvin ball. Yeah, that's the example of flexible rules. Yeah, Calvin ball is when you make up the rules as you play. That's a very good. Would choose your own storybooks count as a game? No, because you are. Remember, you're the one making these choices, right? There's no other person. The book isn't a player. You're the only one making things. 5-dimensional chess. I'm going to assume you just mean normal chess. Yeah, chess is a fixed rules game because chess stays chess. You can't change the rules of chess, right? Any final thoughts? D&D. D&D is, I guess that's kind of interesting to talk about. Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah. So for Dungeons and Dragons, I think, well, that's pretty much fixed rules, unless, the dungeon master becomes kind of mean and then changes them on you. But I guess I would say, yeah. Yeah, I guess if halfway through the game master changes, then I guess you could say it's flexible rules. But if you're staying with the same person, then it's probably fixed rules. Yeah. Move or die, you make the rules and they randomly change every 20 seconds in the game. Yeah, that's a good example of flexible rules because the reason, what was the good example of, is that really, yeah, because you're just making up rules on the spot and it's not really integrated with the thing, I guess. Okay. If there are specific ones and you can only choose specific ones, I guess that really depends on what's going on. So, Uno has fixed rules. I mean, unless you change your deck to a really gimmicky one halfway through. But yeah, Uno has fixed rules, yeah. This one's a bit weird and it's not exactly fun to talk about. Anything else? I don't know how to play Bughouse chess, but yeah, that's RPGs are fixed rules. You know, you have a limited set of resources that you can allocate to specific attacks or stat buffs or whatever for specific things, and you can only choose specific attacks, and that's going to stay pretty constant. Yeah.
I have one. It's a game called Ultimate Horse or Ultimate Chicken Horse.
Ultimate. Yeah, so if you don't know what Ultimate Chicken Horse is, it's like a video game in which you change how the level. Like, there's only one level, but every turn players add more and more items to the mix, so the level gets more and more complex. I guess that would be flexible rules because every time, every reset, you add more stuff. But maybe you could also maybe say that's fixed rules because there are only a specific set of possible things that can be introduced, right? You can't make your own items. So again, a lot of these, it depends how you frame it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so is everyone good? Any final examples? I'm going to assume we're done with this one. So, agreements. Can players make agreements? I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory if you ask me. So, no agreements in rock, paper, scissors. You can't talk in rock, paper, scissors. Monopoly is a good example in which agreements are possible, but let me read my example first. So, agreements are possible. Suppose there's two companies and they're setting prices for you're setting prices for similar products. You can create an agreement such that you keep the prices basically the same. And at that point, isn't that illegal? Yes, but we're assuming there is no government. So they set prices very similarly such that both both companies get the same thing. Chess offering a draw. The thing about chess is that I think, no, agreements aren't really possible in chess per se because it's just two players and offering a draw is going to be, if somebody is losing and they offer a draw, basically, unless the second person who's winning probably shouldn't accept the draw, right? Because they're winning and it's more likely that they'll get a positive payoff. So accepting the draw would actually be detrimental. And as we said, everybody chooses what's best for them. The game Risk, great example of agreements are possible. Hey, if you don't touch me, I won't touch you. Or, hey, if you attack this guy, then I'll also help attack this guy, or et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. Monopoly, somebody said Monopoly. Earlier, where is it? Monopoly is a good example of agreements because, you could say, hey, I'll switch. I don't even remember the names of the things. So I'm just going to go by colors. I have two of the purple ones and I have one of the blue. You have two of the blue and one of the purple. Can we switch so that we can both complete and get a monopoly? And that point, yeah, agreements are possible. Yeah.
Wait, is this assuming that like you're gonna keep your agreement, like you won't break it or anything?
Yes, that's another very important part of an agreement. Agreements we're going to go into a bit, but not like a whole lot on the last day. But yeah, agreements need to be like enforceable. There's tons of real world examples of countries getting into agreements and then some guy, the agreement not being really enforceable and then somebody just leaving and the other country getting mad. And that's another thing that textbooks really like to talk about. They really like talking about the Cold War and they also really like talking about this specific thing. So Commander, Magic the Gathering, I guess, unless somebody's playing Stacks, in which case you never make an agreement with the Stacks player. But yeah, Commander is a good example. So if you don't know, there's basically 4 players. You could just make agreements. I don't play League, so you can help others or not make alliances. Yeah, if there's some way that you could help each other, then there is basically. Yeah, if if you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Are great for that. Yeah. Any final things at all? Yeah, two-player games don't usually have agreements. That's a very good point. Not only do two-player games, usually somebody's going to want to win, but if there is somehow an agreement, somebody could just leave the agreement and suddenly get a better payoff. In this case, maybe these two companies initially agreed to something, but then suddenly one company just drops their price by a little bit and suddenly they get all of their stuff, right? I don't know what AOE2 is, sorry. Any final thoughts, questions? I forgot if I have a slide after this. Okay, do I have a slide after this? Yes. So here are some quick examples. So agreements, Risk, Monopoly, a whole lot of board games with more than two people. And no agreements are a lot of two-player games like chess and checkers. So I'm like some other examples of player games with more than two people are trying to think of some ones that everybody knows. Clue is one because you could say, hey, I'll reveal some information to you if you reveal some information to me. Competitive PvP is actually not a very great example because while there are technically more than two players, in the end, each team is kind of like two players. So yeah, there's no real agreements. If there's more than two teams, maybe, but if there's two teams, again, you can't really do anything. Like this is the absolute last slide. So are there any final questions about anything?
Wait, how do we find the syllabus on the website?
Give me a second. I'm gonna copy paste it into the chat box, I guess. I feel like that's the easiest
got
way
it.
to do it. Give me a sec. Up. There you go. That's our course page. You'll find the syllabus. I'll just quickly show you how to get there. So can everybody see my screen still? You just click on the link and then you're gonna see this thing that says syllabus and then there's a book. Click the book. Boom, there you go. That's our syllabus. Oh, and thank you. I will upload the syllabus to our ed page later after this. So absolutely final questions because we're down to like a minute and I assume people want to go home. Not home, but out of this. We're all at home now, which kind of sucks. Yeah, we're all at home. So people are asking what my favorite game is. XKCD, yes, you notice XKCD. So my favorite game, I'm gonna both talk about like game theory wise and also just, I like Red Dead. But game theory wise, I'm going to have to say that Prisoner's Dilemma is basically my default answer because it's pretty cool just by itself, but remember, I'm gonna quickly go back to our slides. Remember repeated games? So repeated Prisoner's Dilemma is really interesting. And if after this class you want to do any further research, just search up repeated Prisoner's Dilemma because it's probably the most interesting thing, but we're actually going to talk about it. So don't do that now. No spoilers allowed. We'll get to it. So yeah, Where'd the chat thing go? Shovel Knight, I kind of want to get an SAT prep. That's actually the SAT subject test, not the SAT. So, okay, I guess we're done here. So I'm gonna close the thing. How do I stop sharing? Stop. Stop video. Is that? I assume you can still see my screen, right? I have no idea how this works, honestly. Shoot, what did I do? Okay, so there you are. I was completely blind. I'm back. So that's it for today. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about, remember, sequential games. That's the one where you do one thing after another. So yeah, we're just done for today. Hope everybody has a great day. We're meeting Thursday, because today is Tuesday. Yeah, so we're meeting not tomorrow, but the day after tomorrow. So have a good day, and yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye.